Welcome to Mass Effect, Synthesis. A Mass Effect AU fanfiction. Thank you for listening. Let's begin. Chapter 3 Welcome to the Jungle. Earth Calendar 2157 to 2172. Humans settle on another 10 planets, bringing the total number of extrasolar colonies to 13, with numerous small mining colonies situated further out to provide resources. A Systems Alliance defense fleet orbits the main part of each planetary settlement. When asked, Harbinger admits he has full star charts for the rest of the galaxy. He has provided humanity with charts relating only so far as the next star to enhance options. There is anger that he has held back information, but Harbinger simply asks what humans would do with the charts, as they can't get to most of the places. He points out that humanity is expanding as fast as they can and that he has been supportive. Systems Alliance military acknowledge the truth pragmatically and ask Harbinger for advice before they explore further territory. He suggests holding on to existing territory and concentrating on growing populations. He warns humanity about attempting too much too quickly, and again the question is asked as to how old he is, and again Harbinger ignores the question. Dan Savai, and many of the other new SOCL give advice to the SIL. Harbinger had chosen to appear reasonable in first contact. He had chosen to present a subtle side, one that the galaxy only really saw when they were destroying the last vestiges of resistance during a cycle. When the last resistors were buried deep and needed to be persuaded into ascension. The relatively young former SIL, and some not so young, tell the others that they should continue on this path. They can force humans into synthesis, but it is far better if the humans chose it. While no SIL can indoctrinate the organic they require for synthesis, they can indoctrinate any other organic, including those organics other SIL might need. Dan Savai advises against this, though he is aware that in some cases, it's already happened. He tells the SIL that they could dominate, they could control the humans as if they were collectors, but that would put their organics at risk. Be subtle, be gentle, and they will come to you, is the message he gives, and Harbinger approves. Harbinger reminds his forces that they have waited over 1 billion years to find even one being capable of synthesis with them, and they wait 50,000 years between harvesting the galaxy. The charade they are playing with the humans can continue for decades if that is what is required. Privately, the SOCL are amused. The charade represents change in the cycle, because synthesis is now a possibility. The SIL believe that the cycle will always continue. 150,000 human SIL partners have been found, and most have opted to undergo synthesis. No capital class SIL have found their partner, and most of the synthesized SILs have remained around Earth. Harbinger maintains his position above the North Pole, though he has slowly become more active in human politics. No further SIL have been destroyed, and for the most part, everyone believes they are playing a waiting game until the first capital class SIL partner is identified. The SOCLs, while considered still human, respond to Harbinger's authority. While it seems superfluous, the Earth government continues to quietly authorize funding for research into alternate forms of FTL. Justification is based on the fact that the SILs originally arrived in Sol system without utilizing the Mass Effect relays. It is also known, but only to the highest ranks of the Systems Alliance, that the SOCLs have alternate FTL engines, though no details have been given. Systems Alliance Command, based on rather frustrating hints from Harbinger, authorizes further FTL and alternate weapons development under the assumption that other races of the galaxy have developed utilizing the Mass Effect system. An alternate weaponry and travel system would give humanity an edge, because while their home world may be well protected, the colonies are not. Unspoken is the knowledge that if the SIL were to ever turn on humanity, alternate weaponry might be the only thing standing between them and extinction. In 2163, Earth Standard Calendar, the Quarian Migrant Fleet Command order an inquiry into their continued long-term viability. They are appalled at the results. In 50 years, less most likely, the Quarian fleet will be at best half its current size. More realistic estimates suggest that 72% of their ships would have simply failed by then. They have two choices: to somehow make peace with the Council and to settle somewhere, or to disappear entirely in the hope of finding a new home. Neither choice is welcomed, though tentative overtures are made towards the Council and are met with silence. In order to maintain peace on the live ships, they continue on as if nothing is wrong, but the sense of worry grows. April 11, 2172 System Alliance New Recruit Barracks, Luna. Oh honey. I'm so proud of you. Jane Shepard smiled at the holographic image of her mother. It had been a long day and now was the first time they could talk. I only enlisted Mum, she objected. There's a lot more to come. I know, Hannah replied. But a mother is allowed to be proud. Where are you? Jane asked quickly, trying to divert the conversation away from her. Arcturus, came Hannah's easy reply. She was the new XO on the Kilimanjaro and that promotion had meant she couldn't be with her daughter during enlistment. A fact Jane was probably happy about. Is it big? Probably bigger than you realize. Even Harbinger would look small beside it. Jane laughed. Harbinger, the SIL who had initiated first contact with humans, remained larger than life to most, and even though he never left Earth orbit, he seemed to know everything that happened. I doubt that, she said with a shrug. Tomorrow we begin basic training. Have you decided what field you want to go into? I thought I'd try them all out. But Hannah knew her daughter too well. If I can, I'd like to make the Marine. Hannah was shocked. Yeah. I just don't know I can do command like you, Jane replied with more than a touch of bashfulness. Plus they get to go more places. You've been plenty of places. Yeah, I've been to every colony in Sol System, Mum. Nowhere else. I want to see the galaxy. It had long been a bone of contention between them. Now I'm authorized to leave Sol System and I intend to. For a moment Hannah looked down. You aren't disappointed? While no one had said anything, with her own DNA scan being tantalizingly close to a match with a SIL, everyone had been hoping that the next generation, Jane, would provide that perfect match, but she had been told that her daughter, like her, came close but ultimately was not a match. Of course not, Mum. Why would I be disappointed that I can live? Jane asked, her eyes bright, and she was forever thankful that no one could read her thoughts. I pray no one ever compares your test to mine. The genetic test was done on all humans when they reached the age of 18. For those who signed up with the Systems Alliance, it was a part of recruitment, a practically painless pinprick on the fingertip to draw a drop of blood, and the results were known within a day. Most humans of all ages had been tested and fewer SIL partners were being found in the general population, while more and more were being found as they came of age. I don't know. I guess it's a great opportunity. That might be, Jane replied. But if I was a SIL partner, my entire life would have been planned out. I'd be expected to join in union with something I didn't even know. No thank you. I'm human. I want to live. Jane, Hannah's tone was one of mild rebuke. You know it's not like that. Every human has nothing to say but how great it is. Jane sighed audibly, her green eyes meeting her mother's. That might be, Mum, but it's not for me. I'm happy being human. Hannah smiled. I know. We're the same that way. So we will be human together. Jane returned her mother's smile while her thoughts revealed the truth. The same in more ways than one. August 31, 2172. Jane Shepard graduates basic training with the rest of her class. Like all graduates, she now possesses minimal cybernetic implants to improve sight and hearing. Muscle enhancement is reserved for special classes of Marines which are handpicked by the Systems Alliance. August 3, 2172. In the 20 years since the annual firewall test, Systems Alliance firewalls and hacking abilities have advanced significantly. So have the SILs. On the 20th anniversary, the testing has become somewhat of a showcase event. There is the official testing, which isn't reported on, but with the increased numbers of SOCL amateurs are able to enter their code for destruction. The Systems Alliance puts up a prize for the code that lasts the longest and often utilizes that code themselves, so there is prestige attached to winning. While the Systems Alliance military firewalls can last 2 to 3 hours of sustained cyber warfare against a SOCL, most amateurs who enter aim to break 10 minutes. On the 20th anniversary, a gamer enters the competition with a virtual reality interface. The human mind interacts with a virtual, digital world. Most had scoffed at the entry, which teamed a VI with a human mind. 7 hours later, when the firewall finally breaks, no one is laughing. The idea is both simple and revolutionary. Virtual reality had existed for decades, but no one had ever thought to use it this way. The VI provides raw computing power and a logic tree, while the human mind provides guidance, ingenuity and imagination, which makes the cyber walls all the more impenetrable, even by a SOCL that is more organic than a SIL. The idea is immediately patented by the Systems Alliance military, who begin to implement it into their ships. September 2172. Jeff Moreau is confirmed as a match for the cruiser-class SEAL named Edie. Initially he refuses synthesis on the grounds of his health, though Edie rejects that, telling him that she can fix such minor considerations. The two of them join in synthesis, and everyone is surprised when their union takes a mere 2 months. The combined entity returns as very different from most of the SOCL. Where the others have maintained their SEAL-like appearance, Edie has become sleeker and longer and resembles an Earth-designed ship. She is very visibly armed. She is confirmed to be one of the fastest ships in the Navy and one of the hardest to track. She weighs in at an impressive 1.1 kilometers, large enough to be considered a dreadnought but keeping all the nimbleness of a much lighter ship. August 31, 2172, to April 22, 2174. Jane Shepard's unit is initially deployed to Shanxi, where they serve with honor until being shifted to Terra Nova. While Jane Shepard is happy to see the sights and to live, the work is routine, and in the Earth government some are beginning to question the need for such a large standing army because in the 20 years since first contact no further contact with aliens has been discovered. Harbinger declines to comment. April 22, 2174, Sigma-7 mining colony defense fleet, Bridge of the Cairo. Unidentified ships, you are trespassing in Systems Alliance territory. Power down your engines and heave to. The comm officer attempted to sound calm as he issued the orders, but the situation on the Bridge of the Cairo was tense. The unidentified ships had entered the Sigma system via the mass relay and had not responded to any hails. It was originally thought that they were pirates, but their ships were nothing like anything that had been seen, and the captain had realized this was a first contact situation. But for it to be a first contact situation, both parties had to initiate contact, and thus far, the ships had been silent. It would have been accepted if they had stopped. If they were aliens, it was unlikely that they would be like the SEAL and speak human language, but the ships had continued towards the settlement. Sigma-7 was a small mining colony. It warranted only 3 old destroyer-class ships as its defense with 200 cargo shuttles, though it was one relay jump from Terra Nova. The instant the unknown ships had refused to contact, all mining operations had ceased and the cargo shuttles were being piloted towards the mine to take on the miners. Those that were full were skirting through the asteroid belt, heading towards the relay. Unidentified ships. The comm officer began again. Energy spike. The sensor crew screamed. They are armed and have weapons hot. Shields up, charge our own weapons. The captain gave the order with deceptive calm and was pleased when his crew complied. They were outnumbered, though visual images of the unknown ships showed some of them to be a patchwork. They were older and obviously ill-maintained. Even if they had been as imposing as a SEAL, he knew his duty. They fired. The sensor crew shouted, "Return fire, this is our territory and we will defend it." The main cannon spun up and the ship vibrated slightly as the slug was fired into the void. 2 other slugs joined it, fired from the Cairo's sister ships of Venice and Cleveland. Venice is hit. My God. The sensor crews reported and the captain looked over at their station. It showed a visual of the Venice, and while the destroyer was still intact, flames poured from its structure through multiple hull breaches. Whatever had hit it had done damage. Evasive maneuvers, the captain heard himself order. Keep firing and tell the cargo ships to make a run for it. Get the word back to Terra Nova. Aye. The agreement was instant and sure, and even as it was spoken, the Cairo's pilot began maneuvering the destroyer on a long elliptical towards the unknown ships. The Cleveland followed suit and the 2 human ships continued firing as the Venice broke apart. Their main cannon fired as fast as it could be loaded and the heat sinks would allow, and the captain was pleased when one round hit square on one of the smaller ships and it disappeared in a brilliant fireball. More worrying was that the larger ship, which was about twice the size as the Cairo, did not seem affected by their rounds. Every hit was countered by a shimmering blue shield. Brace for impact, the pilot screamed, hands frantically slamming into the controls as he attempted to move the Cairo out of the way, but the captain knew from the shout that it was already too late, and even as his hand gripped the side of his chair, a terrible noise was heard as the enemy round crashed into the ship. The Cleveland continued on, firing as it went as the Cairo came to an almost dead halt in space. Alarms blared and there were sparks and smoke everywhere. Damage report, the captain ordered, coughing as the bridge filled with smoke. "Not good, Captain," a sensor tech replied, looking down at a fizzing display. "We've only got inertial thrust and the shields and weapons are gone. Crew quarters are gone and I can't raise engineering." The woman turned to look up at the captain, deliberately avoiding looking at the bodies that were now filling the bridge. Only an instant ago they had been her shipmates. There was an odd squawk from his side and one comm channel lit up intermittently. "ISFER, control, weapons gone, one tactical, remain." The captain frowned, trying to string together the words into a coherent sentence. "Rerouting their signal now, sir," the sensor tech said without even being asked, and despite the death surrounding him, the captain felt a surge of pride. "This is fire control," the message came through clearly this time. "The weapons are gone, but we have one tactical warhead remaining. Prep the warhead for detonation. If these bastards try to board us, we blow it." "Aye, aye, sir." The captain sat back looking at the sensor tech, who simply nodded at him. They were dead in the water. In the dark space of Sigma 7, the Cleveland was hit and exploded in a transitory brilliance, and the cargo ships with the miners began streaking towards the relay. They were slow and the enemy ships were fast, but the humans were determined, and even as some of them lost their engines and hung dead in space, others turned back intent on ramming the unknown vessels so that at least one cargo ship might escape. The mining facilities on main asteroid were already counting down to self-destruct, and as one ship vanished through the relay, there were two fireballs in Sigma 7 space as the Cairo detonated its last warhead, obliterating the boarding party that had grappled onto its ruined hull, and the mining facilities blew, pelting the unknown vessels with debris to leave them alone in space with the few cargo ships they had managed to disable. April 30, 2174, Terra Nova, Systems Alliance Marine Barracks. "All right, listen up, ladies. You've all heard of the attack at Sigma 7. Systems Command does not know what attacked. It could be pirates, it could be aliens. It doesn't matter, the outcome was the same, all but one cargo ship destroyed. No one attacks the Systems Alliance and gets away with it, so Command has come up with a new plan. Black box indicates that the aggressors had intentions to board, so we are going to let them. And then we are going to ream their asses so bad they are gonna wish they were never born. You mob get the honor of doing the reaming. You are shipping out to Epsilon 15, which is a similar mining facility to Sigma 7. Systems Command feels it's a likely target. Any aggressive force is to be allowed to land and then greeted at gunpoint. Prisoners are nice but are considered a bonus. Any questions? Sir, number sir. Fall in. And move out." It looked like a mad scramble, but it was actually carefully orchestrated, and within 30 minutes all Marines and gear were stowed on transports and launching from Terra Nova. Heading towards Epsilon 15. "Isn't this great, Shepard? It's practically 5 weeks R&R at full pay." "Yeah, great, Tanner." "Oh come on. What are the chances of Epsilon actually being hit?" Jane snorted. Tanner had a point, though she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. "Tell you what, Shepard, if Epsilon is hit, after we finish tearing ET a new one, you can have my knife." Tanner held up the long bowie blade. It was a fine weapon. Though hardly standard issue. "If nothing happens, you give me your flintlock. Deal?" For a moment Jane closed her eyes. Her mother had given her the ancient weapon as a graduation present and it was dear to her, but the feeling was a certainty and she opened green eyes to smile at Tanner. "You got a deal, Tanner. Just remember though when you are giving me that knife, that when Systems Command thinks something's gonna happen, it's usually Harbinger told them something was up." "And how often is the SIL wrong?" Tanner's face darkened for a moment before he grinned back at her. "Nah, the machine's just lucky. Calculations and all that, but in this situation it's just guessing." She looked to the ship deck for a moment. "I hope you're right." May 17, 2174, Epsilon 15 mining colony. "God damn it, Tanner." Jane mentally screamed, reaching out close his brown eyes. "You should have known better than to make a bet with me when you know I'm right." She added the rest, hands automatically scavenging his extra ammo and heat clips. The aliens wanted to board all right, and they had come through in force. Their weapons were odd but highly effective, and they fired fast, and in their initial charge, they had seemed intent on destroying everything. Jane's unit had been near the front and they had all gone down. She was alive because she'd been knocked out by a grenade, and now she was left with the bodies of the dead, listening to the fighting that was continuing deeper in the facility. She'd peeked back into the hangar to see the enemy dropships still in the hangar with a single guard apiece. Her hand hesitated over Tanner's knife before she unbuckled it. "Sorry, Tanner, but I might need it," she whispered to him as she thrust it through her belt and hefted her weapon as her training kicked in. First secure the rear, then she could advance into the facility to help those still fighting. At least the blow hadn't knocked out her optics, and Jane resisted the urge to grin when she spotted a Punisher. That would do nicely. She crawled back towards the hangar and set up position in the corridor. She tried not to think about the fact she was using the dead as cover, but in this situation she doubted they'd mind. 5 transports, and 5 guards. She had no silencer. She could hopefully take out 2, then the other 3 would charge her. Jane pulled out her machine gun to sit it beside the Punisher. God, they were ugly. They almost looked like collectors with their 4 eyes, but they were aggressive, so it didn't matter what they were. A tiny part of her was thankful they were alien. Jane was no innocent. She knew that humans were not great, they would prey upon the weak and undefended, but a part of her was relieved that this violence was not caused by her own species. She hoped they were growing above that. She'd have killed pirates, but she felt more relaxed killing aliens. She could probably get a third while they charged and just riddle the rest with bullets. A tight grin plastered itself to her face as she breathed in, imagining the shots in her mind. Bang! Bang! 2 shots. 2 kills, but the Punisher was overheated. Their response was instant, and Jane's grin held in place when she realized they couldn't properly see her. The heat sink cooled slightly and she lined up on the 3rd, already half reaching towards her machine gun. Bang! The 3rd dropped, but the others had seen her and began to charge. Jane felt nothing as she grabbed her machine gun, bringing it up and pulling the trigger. 1 short sharp burst dropped the closest alien and the other jumped for cover. Damn it, she muttered. It would probably call for backup. She jumped from her own cover, and sprinted towards the hull of one of the transports. The ping of weapons fire made her run faster, and Jane slid into place as the unmistakable sound of rounds hitting reinforced hull echoed through the landing bay. My turn, asshole, she growled, poking the tip of her gun around the corner and firing. The bullets weren't meant to hit anything. They were fired to force the alien to keep its head down. Just like she was. Jane backed away from the corner of the transport slowly. It would be just her luck that they had something like a rocket launcher. Besides, maybe she could slip up behind it. A quick check at the far corner showed the path all clear, and she slunk through the shadows. The alien was shouting something, but her translators couldn't work it out. It didn't matter. It would be dead soon enough. Brass wanted one alive. Brass would just have to put up with bodies. She raced past another transport and ducked. The alien fired a few rounds and she frowned as she listened. It hadn't moved? The grin returned, and with a light step she ran past the final transport, easing her way to the back of it. A quick peek down low and she saw the alien still pressed against the side. Maybe she could capture one? She had enough rounds after all, including a concussive grenade. Gently Jane pulled out the device, and tugged the pin loose before she rolled it down the side of the transport. It was silent on the floor of the docking bay, and she hunkered down as it detonated. There was an awkward squawk and the sound of body collapsing. Shepard held back a small exclamation of victory as she peeked again. The alien was slumped against the transport and looked to be out of it. Without hesitation, Jane ran forward and kicked the alien's weapon away before reaching for the handcuffs they had all been issued with. Now to make sure it stayed put. There was a tie-down ring to the left a bit, and Jane dragged the comatose alien to the ring and latched the cuffs through it, securing the alien's wrist. Then she began going through its gear, throwing everything aside, far beyond its reach, but as she finished she realized there was only one way to be absolutely sure she got everything. The thought did bring her a moment's laugh before she drew Tanner's knife, putting the point under the odd fabric the alien was covered in. It ripped, at least it did once the cut was begun, and it took her only a few moments to strip the alien completely. It was even uglier naked than it had been dressed. 4 eyes reminded her of a collector, but the rest of the body was bipedal in form. She threw everything aside, and when she finished she looked around. There were other alien bodies and humans, but nothing was close enough. It would do. And she had to help the others because she could still hear them fighting. Snapping her helmet back down, Jane stood. Stay put, she said needlessly. The alien wasn't going anywhere, and without so much as a backward glance she ran back into the Epsilon structure. Whatever these aliens were, they were about to find out that they'd just kicked the hornet's nest. May 20, 2174, Arcturus Station, Systems Alliance Command. Jane looked around. It wasn't a court-martial, but this was definitely not routine. Admiral Hackett and Captain Anderson were on the opposite side of the room, and there was some major she didn't recognize standing before her. Lance Corporal Shepard. Sir. Jane snapped to attention automatically. To confirm your statement, after killing 4 of the 5 sentries, you left the 5th handcuffed to the tie ring and then stripped it. Yes, sir. Why? Why what, sir? Jane blinked. Had she imagined the smirk on Hackett's face? Why did you strip the alien? Initially I divested the alien of all materials I thought could be used to escape, but upon reflection I realized that it was an alien. I could not make assumptions about what it might be able to use to escape. Hackett might not have smiled, but Anderson definitely was. She couldn't look over, but it appeared the man was on the verge of laughter. By all reports, the alien had regained consciousness before the battle had ended and was found, struggling to rid itself of the bonds. Its companions had fought to the last body, and they had probably all been under suicide orders. The one she captured had no doubt known exactly how the battle had ended when it was surrounded by humans, though Jane didn't know how embarrassed it might have been about its nakedness. Besides, by that stage being naked was the least of its worries. After you secured the alien, you re-entered the Epsilon facility and aided in the continued fighting. Yes, sir. Gunnery Sergeant Zaid was impressed with your performance. Thank you, sir. I'll be clear, Lance Corporal, your actions are above and beyond the call of duty, and as a result you are being nominated for the program. After basic training, your aptitude for the advanced program will be assessed. Admiral Hackett added. Jane remained standing at attention, staring at the Major. N7 Advanced, sir, she asked. She'd heard of the N7 program. She'd wanted to enter it since before she signed up, but she'd never heard of an advanced program. It's a special program within the N7S, Admiral Hackett continued. It's for those who display advanced leadership and problem-solving abilities, but who can adapt to extensive cybernetic enhancement. We believe, Lance Corporal Shepard, that you will be one of those people, as you displayed logical thinking under fire as well as ingenuity. Thank you, sir, Jane said as she thought about it. She already had some cybernetic enhancements, most Marines did, but she would have to know exactly what extensive meant before she committed to anything, and no doubt Hackett knew that. Do you accept? What could she say to that? Jane smiled. When do I start? End chapter 3, Mass Effect. Synthesis. Thank you for listening. Join me again to listen to the next chapter.